Welcome to another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA. I'm CJ Hutter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Benamar, the sergeant at arms.
And today we have Larry Ortolani joining us. Larry is a retired police officer with the Suffolk County Police Department, and he's been very active in his community with the school boards, very active as a retiree, helping police with their mental health. And he's a retired 3rd Precinct Trustee on the PBA Board. So thanks for coming in, Larry.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. You guys are doing a great job with this podcast, so definitely glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, we're excited to have you on. So for everybody who doesn't know you personally, tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, how you got involved with the PBA and standing up for cops.
Yeah, so was 3rd Precinct cop for about 20 plus years. During that time, I was active with the PBA, was Squad 5 delegate in the 3rd for 4 years, and then I became trustee of the 3rd for about 3.5, 4 years. During that time, I was peer committee chairman for the PBA, so that kind of fed the desire to continue to work on mental health and wellness for first responders once I retired. But in 2019, I was intentionally struck by a blood gang member who was that's a longer story. I won't get into that too much, but, based on the injuries that I sustained there, I ended up retiring in January of 23.
Intentionally struck with a vehicle.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So in January 23, I retired, but, at that time, started a company called Blue Line Advocacy and Wellness. That's a company that advocates for and facilitates mental health services for law enforcement. I formed a partnership with Dr. Dan Goldfarb, who was recently honored for his 38 years of service to the Suffolk PBA. That was awesome. Bill Lindsay Award, so that was great.
Yeah, Dr. Dan's been a huge asset to our membership.
Absolutely. So we formed a partnership as far as how to go forward. He served almost 4 decades, served our members for almost 4 decades. And, so how do we continue to serve law enforcement for decades to come? And that's more what that's about. And then I went back to school. I'm 21 credits to a master's degree as a licensed mental health counselor. I became law enforcement ambassador for the Warrior Ranch Foundation. And then in January, I was added to their board of directors. The Warrior Ranch Foundation provides recreational equine therapy to military veterans and first responders, and they've helped a lot of different law enforcement agencies. They have carting programs, riding programs, roping programs, but initially it's groundwork with the horses, sort of leadership games, and you interact with the horses in a way that sort of creates a great day of like mindfulness, being present, and sort of processing some traumas. We can get into that a little further, but then Miguel Villas, Vicky Singh, co-chairs of the peer team, asked me to help and co-chair a retiree peer team. So we were able to pretty quickly put together a 15-member team that is filled with a lot of superstars. As far as our retirees go, 2 ES cops, experience in shootings, multiple critical incidents, children with special needs, difficult divorces, just a variety of experiences that allow them to relate and provide peer support to other retirees going through similar circumstances. And then in my spare time, I volunteer as vice president of my school board as well.
Bit of a community activist.
A little bit, but I enjoy it.
Did you always have like a passion for mental health and supporting people's mental wellness, or is that something you kind of developed over time, being a police officer, seeing what cops go through, getting involved with the PBA, seeing the critical incidents? Is this something you developed, or did you always kind of have this passion?
Being involved and advocating for people, that's something I always did, but I would be lying if I said that I had an affinity for mental health. It's sort of something that developed, as I started to deal with guys who had significant problems, right? As PBA members and PBA board members, you guys know as well as anybody that you really get embedded in people's lives, both whether it's on the job or off the job or any circumstances that they may be encountering, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, difficult relationships, just everything that they might go through that civilians might go through, plus all the extra things that we deal with as cops that, are stressful to us. And so we get very embedded in their lives. We try and help them. And it was sort of through that process of, it's amazing the appreciation that you might get from someone who was in some of their lowest spots and they came back from that. And when you see the impact that you were able to have on people, like that feeds you, you want to be able to do that for others. And so that's kind of how that developed.
Right. And I agree 100% with what you're saying as far as my own personal experiences too. I always kind of had that desire to help the people around me. I always took a lot of pride in being known as somebody, my peers can come to for help if they're ever in some sort of situation that they're going to need some sort of assistance. But I didn't necessarily have a passion for, say, mental health in particular, right? Until you got involved with the job and saw how our members are affected by critical incidents that they go through, right? It's one of those things that you just kind of start picking up on over time, as long as you already have that passion to help to begin with.
Right. You don't realize necessarily that you're doing mental health, right? You're just helping someone.
Right.
And then it's through that process that you end up being like, okay, we really are involved in this.
Right.
And we need to be involved in it. We need to do more. We've seen, some crazy things. Last year we had 5, right? 2 Suffolk PD, 1 deputy sheriff, 1 probation, and 1 dispatcher, right? So it's actually 5
suicides.
Yeah. Right.
Right here in Suffolk County.
Yes.
Yeah.
And 2 in Nassau. We've had multiple retirees. There's a problem that we need to address. There's no question about it.
Right. And I think one of the things that's been huge, at least now, is, like Tommy Shevlin always says, it's stop the stigma, right? I mean, 20 years ago, or even when I was a rookie cop, I've been on with the city job and Suffolk job. I'm in my 19th year now. There was like a stigma to asking for help or acknowledging some sort of mental anguish that you're going through yourself. Everybody wants to have that tough guy exterior. And I think the newer generation of police officers are more open to asking for help and more open to kind of wearing their heart on their sleeve and trying to take care of their own mental health, not just their physical health.
I agree with both those things. There is, first of all, the younger generation agreed. They're going through school learning that it's okay to treat for mental health. And so as they sort of grow up and get out of school and then, come on this job, they're predisposed to not hating the idea of mental health treatment. So that's a good thing in itself because they'll maybe be more open to treating before things get bad.
Right.
But there's definitely a stigma against mental health treatment in general for civilians, right? We hear that there's a mental health crisis in this country. We see it in the papers every other week. And in law enforcement, it's exponentially worse because not only are we dealing with everything that civilians are dealing with, but we're dealing with all the traumas related to law enforcement. And then taking that a step further, if the law enforcement person is a veteran, now you have the civilian stresses. You have the fact that they were a veteran and maybe experienced some really acute traumas while they were serving. And then they come on a job where they may do 10, 20, 30 years of cumulative trauma, right? With all the things that we experience. It's, who knows what you can experience on this job. You may have a baby die in your arms. You may respond to a SIDS death where you're listening to parents literally scream their grief. You may respond to a bloody domestic, or you may be called vile things, particularly during, the post-George Floyd era where we were dealing with a lot of bad stuff. You may, be fighting for your life with someone. All these things have an impact. And if we don't process those traumas, they build up. Why is it that most often, not all the time, but most often, it's a male in his 50s who dies by suicide? It's because it built up over time. And then it's something, it's not, what's the impetus that actually has them die by suicide? Is it a transfer? Is something, is it a relationship? But it's not that thing. It's all the things over time that leads to, that
the
really
straw
bad.
that broke the camel's back.
Exactly. That's what happens.
Right. And I think there's been a big push to have PTSD recognized among police officers more now when it comes to those cumulative things, not just one specific incident. And I think it's becoming more widely accepted that, you know what, you can't necessarily just point to one thing. But when a cop has, like you said, a 10, 20, 30-year career, and they've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of critical incidents in their careers where, like, you mentioned SIDS deaths. I've been to 2 SIDS deaths in my time as a cop, and both of those stuck with me for months. Those balls, especially as a father with young kids, like it's every parent's worst nightmare,
right?
And you feel helpless. It's like there's almost no explanation. It's a sudden death for no explanation, no fault of your own most of the time. It's one of those things that you couldn't imagine going through, and you feel for these parents that you're in their living room as all these cops are coming through, doing whatever they have to do to investigate the scene, taking pictures, interviewing the parents, what they do last night, how was the child sleeping, were the blankets in the bed, did you move anything, right? And meanwhile, they just lost their kid, and the parents are going through it. It's tough on the police officer too. Part of your role becomes, almost trying to comfort them through this worst day of their lives.
Those are tough questions to ask them too.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Right. Yeah, there's no amount of consoling you can do for a parent who just lost their child. You're helpless in that, like you said.
Yeah.
And that's those are things that are going to stay with you. You're never going to forget how those screams sounded. There's just no way.
Right.
And those are the kinds of things, and then what happens, right? We ask the guy, you're all right here. I know that was tough. And yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Mm-hmm. And of course, everyone's looking to help when that happened. Right. What happens when there's a 10-1 or something going on, right? Everybody rushes to the center and everybody's there to help. And even sometimes, we could do a better job of staying on the outside and forming a perimeter in case somebody's getting away, but we don't. We just go to the scene because it's human nature to want to help.
Right.
But in reality, and then what happens? Everybody goes back in service and goes back to their sector and they do their thing. And that guy is left with whatever happened. Maybe he was in a fight for his life. And so he's got to deal with that. But everybody else is continuing doing what they're doing. And he's left with that. And in the case of a SIDS death, people came and tried to help and whatever it was. And now that guy's left with that. And maybe he's okay for a few years, but maybe starts dreaming about it or, maybe starts having nightmares about it. And, that starts to bother him more and more. And, in addition to all the other traumas that he's experiencing in his life, whether it's job or personal, and those things build up. And, that's when something bad happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I bring up SIDS because it is something that bothered me throughout my career. And as a new father, like, I wasn't really comfortable with my kids sleeping through the night on their own until I knew they were strong enough to move themselves around. So you didn't have to worry about a positional asphyxiation kind of thing, which sometimes that is the cause of the SIDS.
Yeah. And so, not that I'm analyzing you, but look at how well you've thought about that. Right? That's because of the experiences that you've had, and you're not going to let that happen in your life. And sometimes, unfortunately, things are unavoidable, but you're doing everything you can. And that's because of the experiences that you've had. And I'm not saying it's traumatic, but it's related to the experiences you've had, and it's had an impact on you. There's 100%. No denying that.
It built an awareness in my own life. Right. Absolutely.
So you talked about stigma. Right. When it comes to stigma, we know that cops don't want to treat for mental health typically. It's a macho profession. It's not easy. So to get someone to treat and be willing to treat, particularly, longtime cops. But how do we build a structure that works? How do we get paid like this? So you've had a lot of great organizations in here, right? The Good Foundation is amazing. Danny came in here and Damon came in with Brotherhood of the Fallen. And these guys are coming in to bring assistance to families when, devastation happens.
Right.
And it's awesome. And in Danny's case, it's a long-term care of the remaining family members to make sure that they're okay and that they're taken care of. And that's awesome. But equally important are organizations that are trying to do something before lives are shattered, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's really important. And so that relates to how we create a structure that makes cops comfortable treating for mental health issues and processing traumas that they experience. And, that is what union-driven services are about. And I think that that's something the Suffolk PBA understood a long time ago, and it's awesome. And so bringing that to other law enforcement unions and honing that, making it better, and making guys more comfortable utilizing services, I think that that's really important, and that's what I'm trying to shed a light on. So building up Dan's office, the Warrior Ranch Foundation is only first responders and military veterans. So these are safe spaces where guys can feel comfortable treating, right? You have to have clinicians in your mental health facility that understand police culture. It's cultural competency.
100%.
If they don't understand how we internalize what we experience, if they don't understand how we interact with our spouses as a result, or how we parent our kids when we spend all day kind of giving orders or telling people what to do, how does that impact how we parent our children? It does. It has an impact. Right. And so what are all those stresses that come from that in our relationships with our family members? And we need clinicians that understand that. I can call my healthcare provider and say, can I have the 3 closest mental health clinicians to my house? And I go, and maybe I'm sitting in front of a young person who 2 years ago was marching around protesting cops in George Floyd riots.
Right.
Like that's perfectly possible, but it's not possible in a clinician's office dedicated to assisting law enforcement.
Right.
And so that's what we're focused on, providing a safe space where cops know they can get treated, and treated in a way where the union serves as a firewall between the department and mental health. And that's not to say that the department shouldn't be part of it. They definitely should. So I have this thing that I say where, there's a lot of wellness and there's a lot of EAPs and a lot of different resources that might be out there. And I know that the county and the job has to do that. But at the same time, I always say they can build it, but they're not going to come because guys are not comfortable. They may lose their gun. They may not get promoted. They may be sent to a unit where they can't earn overtime, and suddenly there's financial
Guys
stress.
are worried about the negative repercussions of
100%.
looking for help.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that makes it hard to go to your job to ask for help. But if you have union-driven services that the job supports, now you're talking about something, right? Collaboration between the department and the union to provide services through the union, because guys will feel safer utilizing them. And so what does support look like? Support looks like the job encouraging this collaboration between the job and the union to utilize those services. And it also is in the form of funding. Right.
Outward and open support.
Right.
Yeah.
Funding that is earmarked specifically for mental health services. That would be a game changer.
That'd be huge. Yeah, exactly. And I think having advocates that are cops speaking this and spreading it around, I think that's extremely important, because as cops, we trust other cops.
Right. 100%.
Right. You've been through similar situations as I've been through. You can relate to what I deal with day to day out on the road, or, as a family man, as a father, as a husband, you're living a similar life to me. So it's easier to relate and get treatment that way. And it's preventative maintenance. It's like anything you own, like your vehicle, you do preventative maintenance, right? Your house, you maintain your house to avoid big problems in the future. You got to do the same thing with your mind and your body.
That's exactly what and these peer teams are doing.
Right.
Is the outreach when they know now that there was some type of critical incident or something like that may have had an impact on people. It's the outreach now to make sure that people are okay, or to let them know the resources that are available to them. Not everybody will want to treat with a mental health clinician. Maybe they've had a bad experience in the past. And so then they're like, I tried that when my father passed away and I really didn't like it. But there are non-traditional resources, and that's where the Warrior Ranch comes in.
And I think just knowing that there are resources available helps the mental health of cops after critical incidents also. Because even if they feel like they're dealing with it okay, part of dealing with it okay might be knowing that there is the possibility of help if they feel they need it. Right? Because if there was no possibility of help, maybe you feel like, oh, wait, maybe I can't deal with this myself. That becomes more, like it compounds. Right? Knowing that there's something in the background that is available, reaching out proactively, not waiting for the cop, reach out to us. Right? We call them after their critical incident. Them just knowing that we're on top of it, we're here if they need us. I think that helps the mental health
and having different ways to do that, like the Warrior Ranch, like you just said, I think it's a very cool idea, and it seems like a lot of the guys that I talk to that have been there love it. Not everybody wants to sit there and talk to somebody one-on-one. They don't feel comfortable doing that. Right. And I think they do a great job over there of really setting up a way where the cops feel comfortable, and then if they want to, they could talk to somebody.
Right. You can lose your mind in being productive and taking care of this horse. Right? I mean, you brush the horse's hair. Tell us a little bit about what are the activities that you would do at equine therapy, and what are the benefits? Like, how does it help?
It's amazing. Yeah. So there's a science behind it. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, so I can tell you that their electromagnetic field is 5 times as large as ours. Somehow we're electronic, and our hearts work that way. And there's some kind of science behind that interaction. Horses are prey animals, right? So when they sense fear, they're going to run. Right. If you come in hot with your stuff, that's going on in your head, and you sort of come in hot, you're gonna that horse is going to back off you, right. and it's going to force you to be present and mindful in what you're trying to accomplish, because so you're being directed by a coach who's trying to help you accomplish certain goals with the horse, and so you will have to be present and mindful as you're trying to do that, or it's not going to work. And of course, we all want to succeed, so we're going to try. And just within that is how it works. So the retreats that we have, there's about 4 or 5 retreats a month. So I should just give a shout out to Eileen Shanahan, who is the president and founder of Warrior Ranch. She's done an amazing job of starting this. So it's a retreat day that starts at 9 and ends at 3 typically. We'll give you breakfast and lunch, and we'll do 2 sessions outside. You'll start by just interacting with the horses. You'll brush them. You'll clean their hooves. And then you'll do some like leadership games where you'll walk them. And, if you don't walk the horse is going to walk you. So you really have to sort of figure it out and be the leader.
Right. Take control in the moment.
Right. And, we have a lot of type A guys. So, we're not averse to being the leader, and there's an opportunity, to do that in this situation. So, like I said, it really forces you to be mindful, and you have a great interaction. Now, once you come to the ranch, you're welcome anytime we have a retreat. And that's a great thing, because it allows you to, just if you're having a tough day, or, we want to get there too. I mean, there's an opportunity, so we're a 501c3. We live off of grants and the generosity of people who donate to us. So, someday maybe we'll be open full time and people will just be able to pop in. That would be amazing. But it's just you. So you can come back and you can graduate to some of these. You can become a coach. You can volunteer at the ranch, which is a great way to have access to it. Or you can just graduate to these additional riding, roping, and carting programs. So it's we've worked with the deputy sheriffs. Obviously we are the preferred. I'm happy to say we're the preferred provider of recreational equine therapy for the Suffolk PBA, and Nassau County, MTA, NYPD. We've had a lot of various agencies come in, and we've been able to help.
So it's open to all law enforcement
Absolutely.
Officers.
Yeah,
it's not just exclusive to Suffolk County.
No.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it was pretty cool. I was reading up a little bit on it, and the horses have their own traumas too. And that's also part of it. A lot of them are former they ran in races and stuff like that.
Right. So Sully, who's one of our favorites. So by the way, it is a rescue for horses. Right, it's a two-way rescue.
Interesting. I never knew that side of it.
The horses that are providing therapy are rescues themselves. So you're rescuing horses, and then you're rescuing America's heroes. Is sort of how it goes, right? And and you bring that up, and that's actually a great point, because Thursday, I'm not sure when this is airing, but we'll say Thursday, there is a documentary that's going to be played down the line in the future as well, but it's premiering on Thursday at the Suffolk and Riverhead, and it's about the horse Warrior. Warrior was Eileen's first horse, and this horse came in with a lot of trauma. He was maybe not treated well by his prior owner, and he was very difficult to tame. And Eileen actually was pretty severely injured as a result of the horse swinging his head into her face. And so it took a long time to sort of help that horse get over its trauma. And then once he did, he then became the first horse that was providing therapy to veterans and first responders. So it's
He was the first one?
He was the first one.
Wow.
And he was called Warrior.
And that's what the ranch is named after him?
Correct.
Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah.
So it's a cool story. He passed away in 2021. What do they call that when you give something away? In a movie, you give some, there's a term for that, but anyway.
Give something away?
Yeah, no, you're giving away the story.
Spoiler alert.
There you go.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Spoiler.
That's the one. It's that's a great story of not only the first horse to be providing therapy, but also what the ranch does and why. Really, it really sort of brings it together.
Does the documentary just talk about the horse, or does it talk about the people that the horse is affected too? Like
both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And that'll get played again and again, so you'll have an opportunity to see that.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. I never knew that backstory about Warrior being the first horse. I'm looking forward to seeing that documentary.
Yeah.
Now, the Warrior horse passed away in 2021. Does the documentary go beyond that to what the Warrior Ranch has become?
Absolutely.
It does.
And the veterans and first responders that we've impacted. There's interviews great. And it's really good.
Yeah, that's great. I'm looking forward to watching that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's going to be nice for our members to be able to see that. And it really open up their eyes to what other options are out there, because this equine therapy is relatively new. I only just started hearing about it the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't know about it.
Right.
I was introduced to it, and I've had an opportunity to see so many cops go there and just have the best day,
right.
And they want to come back. And so many people, including people in this office, keep saying to me, when can we get out there? And
right.
I know, listen, it's awesome. It's on 6 acres of Suffolk County parkland. We've been very lucky to have legislative support here in Suffolk County. They've been great to us. Nick Caracappa, Steve Flotter, and the Riverhead Supervisor's Office has been huge for us. So we've been very lucky to, have great support because we're doing great things. That's kind of how it works.
Absolutely.
And it's great to have the opportunity for guys who, it's not only after a critical incident at work, but it could be something that happened at home. It could be the loss of your own child, a parent, a spouse, whatever. It could be you're dealing with your own cancer treatment and you have this stress to think about. And it's just it's a way for anybody who's going through anything to, I don't want to say distract themselves, but the reality is it distracts them from whatever's bothering them and gives them some peace.
Yeah. Yeah, CJ, that's a great point. I would say, I'm trying to think in my head now, it's probably 50-50.
Right.
People are coming in for personal stuff just as much as they're coming in for some critical incident or just some cumulative trauma over a long period of time.
Right.
They're coming for both. So that's a great point too. You don't have to feel like it's just, because something job related happened.
Right.
That's certainly not the case.
Right. We all have stressors at home. We all have stuff that we have to worry about, deal with. And this is another tool in the toolbox
100%
to help all of us deal with whatever it is we're going through.
It's a great outlet. It really is.
And again, it's a police officer safe environment. It's not, it's respectfully to civilians. It's not open to civilians. We need resources that are going to make guys feel safe utilizing them. And
right.
That's the only way to get guys to utilize them.
And like you had put before, being able to be in a police officer, safe environment, it's really because they understand us a little better. Like, you get a couple of cops in a room and they start joking around and you have some civilians sitting in a corner listening in. They might think that some of the humor that we have is, off-color humor. Maybe we sound disturbed, but really a lot of the humor we have is a coping mechanism for the
right.
stuff we've gone through at work.
100%.
Right. I mean, you see it with the military guys all the time too. You get a group of military guys in a room and you listen to some of the stuff they're joking about and it sounds a little crazy, but that's part of coping.
Dark humor. It's
right.
dark humor, but that's how we cope, no doubt. No one's going to ask you to share sort of your stuff at the ranch, but you have the opportunity to do that if you want to. We have at every retreat, we have a mental health clinician there. So it's not just, this isn't haphazard. It's organized, structured, and it works. And so if someone wants to, we sort of have a 45-minute meeting before we get started. And there's an opportunity there. There's introductions that go around and people have the opportunity to share if they want to. And sometimes there's some really good stuff that happens in that room before we even go outside, that people are just carrying some stuff they want to let out. But you don't have to. No one's going to ask you to do that. And if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. But we also have a mental health clinician there just in case somebody needs that.
Is that like a group setting you're talking about before you go out there?
Correct. Yeah.
So then do more people feel like they can share when they hear one person open up? Is that usually how it works?
When you hear, so we'll sort of, we'll go around the room and we'll have people speak, just introducing themselves. And then the leadership team will talk. And, when they start explaining sort of what they do and who they are and what they've gone through, you start to see that. There's usually a couple of people in the room who will share a little more about their story, who are volunteers at the ranch. And that does sort of sometimes feed that comfort with sharing your own stuff. So yes is the answer to that question. Yeah,
that makes sense. Because anytime you're in any sort of situation like that, where it's kind of the platform of an open discussion, you always kind of need that first domino to fall. And then everybody starts getting involved. But sometimes it's that first person to open up, that first domino to fall, that it really takes to make everybody else more comfortable.
Yeah. And then we'll step back inside for lunch and everybody's together again. And we'll talk about, how has it been out there? What's your experience been like? And, it's just more conversation. And maybe now someone is a little more comfortable after interacting with people and the horses for the morning to share something or not. It's fine. Either way. And then we'll go back out and do a little more work.
Right.
So it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely good stuff. And I'm excited to finally do this episode because we've been talking about it for, it seems like about 2 months getting you on the air because pretty much every episode we've done has come back to mental health at some point in time.
Yeah.
All right. So it's become such a big topic that everybody comes on here and ends up speaking about. Like you brought up Damon and Danny, right? Everybody talks about mental health for at least a few minutes on their episodes. So this is the first one that's really dedicated solely to mental health.
Right.
So I've been excited to have you on.
I appreciate it. It's been great just talking about this. It's therapeutic for me.
I'm sure it is. Right. But, we talked about that with Danny Calandona. Part of him starting the Good Foundation was therapeutic to him. It made him feel like he's helping kids that were in a situation similar to his own.
Mm-hmm. We have, so there's definitely, helping, we all know that helping other people is therapeutic. And you'll hear, any psychologist will tell you that, helping others and getting involved in therapy is going to be therapeutic for you personally.
100%.
So, that certainly works. So that's part of why I do it. It's just, I enjoy it and I know it makes me feel good. So if that's therapy, then that's what it is.
I think that's the cool part about the Warrior Ranch too. Like you're taking care of the horses, and some of the horses have some traumatic issues. And I think that's a really cool part of it, especially as cops. We're so used to responding and treating people. And you might think that the horse is just helping you, but you're actually helping the horse, I'm sure.
Sure. That's definitely the case. They have personalities too. So when you're interacting with them, it's pretty cool. Sometimes they'll lean into you, they feel maybe you need a little something and they'll lean into you. It's just, you never know what you're going to get. It's very interesting and cool.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you're not just a one-trick pony, but you're also involved in the school board, right? You're very involved in your community, right?
Definitely.
You got involved with Island Trees School District School Board? Right?
Yes, correct. So today is election day, as it turns out. I'm rooting for Mike Simonelli as well. I know he was on here. He is a fierce advocate for the Smithtown schools, and I certainly hope that the result goes the way it should. But yes, I got involved around the same time that Mike was. I know Mike talked about, so some of the DEI anti-police overzealousness that was going on.
Even though he wasn't on the board, he kind of got involved and vocal as a community activist, basically.
And that, I have this saying where I say, today's school board members are tomorrow's legislators in some cases. And so, it just motivated me though, because we need people who are pro-cop on some of these boards to sort of dispel some of that crazy anti-police rhetoric that was going on at that time. So that was really was the impetus for me. I had previously thought about it. And when this was going on, that was really all I needed to get involved. So And it's good. It keeps me involved in my kids' school, which is always great. Excuse me. My daughter is 16, so she's in 11th now. So it's starting to get towards the end, and I'll probably do this one more term and then pass it on to somebody else. But it's that's been pretty rewarding too. Just being involved.
Right. And how does your daughter feel about daddy's involvement in the school district? Does she realize the work you're doing behind the scenes?
She does, but she's also gets embarrassed, and everything is embarrassing at 16 when you're a girl. So, I try and give her space, but she knows her dad's involved, and I think she definitely appreciates what I do. So, she has her own way of expressing it.
Right, and I think it's great that your motivation to get involved was, the interest of your daughter, right? The interest of your family and how they're growing up in their community. But also it was the negative police sentiment that was going on in the schools at that time. So it was part of your role as a PBA rep, right? It was part of your role as advocating for cops. You're living the full lifestyle. You're not just drawing the line and stopping somewhere once especially once you retired. You're a retiree now. Right. You've continued this. It's part of who you are. Definitely.
In truth, that was definitely the impetus, was that rhetoric I can't, this can't happen. There might have been a thing or two that had happened that I noticed in my district that I thought was of concern related to what we were talking about. And that kind of, made me concerned enough to say, I need to look a little deeper into this. I need to be more sort of involved and have more access to make sure that we're focusing on the academics and not the rhetoric. That's what it's all about. It's a place of learning.
Right? On the police side too, most of those kids will have their first interaction with the cops around that age, or at least you hope that it's a good interaction, and you don't want to start spreading negative rhetoric like you're saying.
If you guys remember, there were some districts putting out like letters, like apologists who were commenting on the political rhetoric at the time. Like it had gone so far from where a learning institution is supposed to be that, something had to give. And, some of our guys had to get involved. We have a bunch of, Dave Sammartino, John Nat, Brian Michaels, Mike's trying to get on. Who am I missing? Myself. So we have some hopefully strong leaders who will be there for a while,
Right. A lot of guys that are trying to get involved and try to make sure that the right messaging is getting out there to the impressionable kids. Because when we were growing up, police officers were viewed as heroes in the community. Not just police officers, but nurses, doctors, teachers, right? We were all kind of one and the same that helped build the strong community. We were the heroes of our society.
Right.
And we went through a very weird time where all of a sudden cops were painted as bad guys all the time, as too authoritative. We abuse our power, right? They were putting these negative spins on police officers, and all these kids grew up seeing it. And we're seeing big time ramifications now with kids that are growing up that want to be cops, right? There's less of them now than there were 15, 20 years ago. We're seeing huge drops in applicants for police jobs. We're seeing huge drops in people that want to go into lives of service to their community. And a lot of it is because of that negative rhetoric that was going on the last 15 years. Because it really goes back 15 years. It didn't start with George Floyd.
Right. You're right. The most recent Suffolk police test, right? It was probably 2 weeks prior to the expiration, of signing up for that test. Right. It was probably 25% of what it normally would be. 25%.
Right.
Not down 25%. It was 25% of what the total was
down
normally.
75.
And then a massive outreach effort helped goose that number up a little bit, but
we still dropped by 2/3.
Which is,
it's
significant. Yeah. So that tells you how people feel about, stepping into that uniform and having to deal with what comes from that questionable, everybody questioning your every move. And, some of the leftover of, that anti-police rhetoric is that everybody has this attitude now of you can't tell me. And it makes it very difficult to have any kind of interaction with anyone.
Right. When the fact of the matter is we've gone through training. New York State has given us the authority to tell you what to do within the scope of the law.
Right.
If I'm giving you a lawful order, you have to obey it.
Right.
Because I'm giving you that lawful order to preserve safety, right? There's something going on. I'm preserving safety, whether it's at a crime scene, I'm protecting the integrity of it, whether it's at, maybe there's a crime going on down the road, right? And I tell you, you can't cross the street right now, right? You have to obey the lawful orders you're being given by police officers. And for some reason, a lot of the teenagers and 20-somethings nowadays think they could just do whatever they want to do. They don't have to listen to what a police officer tells them.
Right. I'm going to steal one of Mike's lines. That's my favorite is no one ever got shot complying with the police.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Very true.
Just comply.
Right.
If you are looking to debate what occurred or you feel that the infraction didn't occur or whatever the case may be, you'll have your opportunity to prove that.
Correct.
But for
100%.
now, for everyone's safety, you comply with the police and we move on. It's real
100%.
simple. It should be real simple.
Right. I used to say it all the time too. We don't have an excessive force issue in policing in America. We have a lack of compliance issue when it comes to policing in America.
100%. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So, and, I think going back to the mental health now too, the way cops are being looked at does affect the mental health of the cops that are working, right? Because when you're always under that microscope, when people are putting that negative spin on something that occurred where you had good intentions, you were trying to help somebody who was in need of police assistance, and everybody's trying to tell you were doing the wrong thing, or you screwed up, or you become that next viral video that everybody in America is watching.
Right.
And whether you're a part of it or just knowing the risk is there, that affects everybody tremendously.
It's a massive amount of pressure, right? I mean, to have to always know that, there are guys who will respond to calls and be thinking in the back of their head, how is this going to play out on video? How am I going to be made to look? Am I going to get
That's the last thing you should be thinking of when you're dealing with a call.
That's not safe.
Right.
It's not safe
it's
to
distracting.
be thinking that way when you're trying to handle, a call that may go south. In my circumstance, where I was injured, we were responding to a 911 call where it was like a suspicious car, possibly dealing drugs, and my partner and I, rolled up on that call, and it went south fast. That guy, we opened the door and he drove in reverse. I hung onto the door and he backed up 30 feet, slammed on the brakes, threw it in drive, and came right for me, and ended up, at the last minute driving further towards me. The last thing I remember thinking before I got hit was, I'm going to clear it. And then he drove towards me and, knocked me 10 feet in the air, broke both my wrists. That's how fast it can go bad.
Right. It's in an instant.
And, how are you going to be made to look? Like, that car hit me so violently that a piece of my pants was stuck in the grill of the car. Like that,
right.
It's a miracle I survived it, honestly. But, so that's, talking about mental health, that's had an impact on me going forward. I always know when it's March 8th every year, and, that kind of sticks with me, and that's my thing to deal with. But, that's the way it goes,
Right. Right. And I think part of the mental health that we're seeing too is, like you were involved in something, but it's just knowing that the risk is there, right? So when you take a case like the Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson, Missouri, right? And you had the police officer involved there who was painted by a lot of the mainstream media sources as the bad guy who used excessive force to shoot Michael Brown. When once the case was heard and all the evidence was brought forward, it was found that he actually acted appropriately. The use of force was justified, but there was already so much negative attention brought on this guy after doing the right thing that he had to stop being a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri, had to move his family out of town. They had to uproot their lives for doing the right thing.
Right.
And people think about that. That's in the back of cops' minds when they're out there working.
What are the rest of the guys in that department thinking about, right? They're like, I'm not getting involved, right? And you get this now, what happens, right? Guys aren't getting involved. They're not doing their job. They don't care. They're like, yeah, I'm just going to get jammed up. Why should I bother? And so that just feeds the criminal element. It gets worse, and, everything gets worse as a result of that. So
Right.
You know, that's that bad messaging and the impact that it has. And, you know, when departments are making and courts are making decisions based on politics, that trickle down effect is going to continue to have an impact on cops going forward.
Absolutely. So many politicians over the last 2 decades have been looking for their soundbite opportunities to grandstand to a voting block rather than waiting for the complete story to come out and really being open to the public as to what's going on, rather than looking for these sound bites that's going to appease certain groups of people and just protect their jobs as an elected.
Yeah, we live, you know, in the end, we just want a safe community and we want safe interactions with people. You know, I think you guys have said before, we live in these communities, right? We police these communities and we want all the interactions to be safe. And we want our communities to be safe. And it's just as simple as that. The polarization and the political polarization that's going on, that's got nothing to do with us. We don't want any part of that. You know, we just want to do our jobs.
Right. We're out here that we just want to help people. Right. That's why you became a police officer. That's why you became a PBA rep, why you continue doing what you're doing in retirement. You're just looking to help people.
That's it. You know, I know that I enjoy doing that. So that's why I continue to do it. And it's good for me personally. And hopefully it's good for other people.
Right. Right. Now, what's going on in the school boards now? Like, have you seen, I know you've made difference in your school district. I know there's far less negative police sentiment coming out of the schools now. What do you see going forward? Do you feel like it's completely gone? Is it just less of it? We're hearing less?
I think it's important to, you know, stay vigilant on it, right? You know, as soon as you start stepping away, you know, things can creep back in. But I think still from the state down, you know, there's still a lot of push to, you know, like transgender sports and all the, you know, that stuff is still going on.
Right.
So it hasn't been eradicated. You know, it's coming. It's still, the state is still attempting to, and I don't want to make this necessarily a political discussion, but they're still attempting to, you know, bring down some, idealistic.
They're forcing it into the academics part, is what you're getting at.
Yeah,
right?
And unfortunately, it's very hard to combat that as a local school board because they'll threaten to take away your funding. And now they're attempting to put in place the removal of school board members. You know, and they use tricky language, and they'll say if you violate someone's rights or the DASA Act, Dignity for All Students. You know, they'll use that to try and you know, it's similar to cops, right? Mm-hmm. And similar to what you just talked about. If you remove a school board member, right, if you're successful in doing that because that school district is not compliant with something the state is trying to jam down our throats, then what does that say to the other school board members? They're going to start complying because they don't want to be thrown out, or they'll all be thrown out and new people will come in that are compliant. One way or another, we lose.
That's horrible politics. And
yeah.
You either do what I say or don't get what you need.
Right. And we're not doing it the right way. These are, you know, regulations that really aren't supposed to be enforceable, and we try and fight back on that. There is something called the New York State Coalition of School Board Members, and that is a great organization of school board members who meet monthly to share ideas and, you know, inform each other, because a lot of times they try and keep you ignorant and uninformed so that you can't push back. Right. But the collective group who have sort of found each other organically, and it's an amazing thing. It's been around for like 4 years, and we have 3 founders who do a phenomenal job. So they, you know, we're able to stay informed and use sort of collective resources to try and push back as best we can. So to answer your question, it's still going on.
It's still going on. Right. And I'm glad you brought up, you know, the transgender, you know, topic right now, and, you know, biological males getting involved in female sports. Part of the whole reason for having female sports and male sports was to create that equal playing field for females. Give them the opportunity to excel in sports, win championships, earn athletic scholarships, giving them the opportunity. And if all of a sudden you start bringing biological males into their competition, there's an undeniable biological advantage to being a male in a female sport.
Yeah, no question. It sounds so simple, right?
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense. And it's so unfair. And, you know, when you talk about like women's rights and girls' sports, like where has that movement gone that we've gone so far off the rails that now something like a transgender male in female sports makes sense, where they're shattering records and destroying everyone's morale and destroying those programs? Because once again, we're talking about the same thing. What impact does that have on the other people the other girls who are considering those sports? Forget it. What's the point? He's just going to win.
Well, what happens to that girl who is now second in the county championships to the biological male? Or what happens to that girl who was fourth and misses out on a bronze medal? Right? You could have been a medalist. It's something to talk about and brag about to your children as you grow up. It's one of those lifetime childhood memories that's being stripped from you.
Right. She could have been a future gold medalist, and maybe she'll quit now.
Right. You know, exactly.
That's the potential impact of that. It just makes no sense. And then, of course, there's the bathrooms issue and the locker rooms issue, which is very disturbing. You know, you shouldn't be able to pick and choose what you feel like being on a particular day and then choose the bathroom you want to be in or the locker room you want to be in. None of that makes any sense.
And it's not just that, you know, the transgender individual making the choice to go into, let's just say, a biological male into a female bathroom, but now you're subjecting the females to seeing this going on. And what if my daughter ends up seeing male genitalia in the bathroom?
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Right? Like, I don't want my daughter to see male genitalia in the bathroom or in a locker room.
Yeah, that's a trauma that won't go away soon.
Right.
That's for sure.
Right.
And it should be common sense, right? We should just be doing this by common sense, but instead we're doing it by politic.
Right.
And that's a problem, you know, and that's a problem from the state down. And that's very hard to change, you know, at the state level when politically, the like-minded people of common sense are very much outnumbered.
Right. And, you know, I just want to be clear too. Like if somebody's 18 years old, an adult, and they choose to live, you know, as a transgender or because they feel they were born a certain way, you know, that's one thing. I don't care what you do. I want everybody to be happy. I just don't want their decisions to infringe on everybody else, right? I don't want their decision to affect my daughter in a junior high locker room.
Right. Local school boards have local control.
Right.
The whole idea.
Exactly.
It's government at its, micro form that we're supposed to be addressing the needs of our community. Right. We're supposed to be knowledgeable on the needs of our community. And we're supposed to implement policies that reflect the needs of our community. And it's supposed to be so simple, and it should be local control to a certain extent. There should be, it should be uniform to an extent because we all want to have the learning be, to a certain extent and where everybody is sort of, learning the same things, to an extent. But then when it comes to some of those other decisions, we should be focusing on local control and have the opportunity to implement policies that reflect our communities.
Right.
It really, again, this is common sense. This was how it was developed and this was how it was meant to be implemented. And now it's being, sort of
dictated by
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It was the whole point of having the local school board, right? It's just like different layers of government, right? Where you have town council, then you have county legislature,
right.
Then you have county-wide positions, right? Then you go to state, federal. It's the same thing.
Yeah. It's local government, local control, and that's what we continue to fight for. And we have been, again, that New York State Coalition of School Boards is a website for that. And there's a lot of great information there on how you can find them and get involved. In trying to push back on this, like you said, Tanner, the dictating of, from Albany, how we should be implementing pretty soon Long Island school districts are going to be PS whatever, right? It's going to turn into that. That's not what it's supposed to be.
And that's not what people want in the suburbs.
Right. That's, people move here for our schools, not to have them be morphed into what the city school district looks like.
Exactly. You move to the suburbs for that suburban lifestyle.
Yeah.
You pay for it too.
Right,
So,
exactly. You do.
Right.
You pay for it. Yeah, and you get what you pay for. Like, I'm very happy with my school district where my kids are growing up. I'm very happy. I have nothing but good things to say about the school board there. The superintendent's always reaching out to everybody in the community. I feel like he leaves a voicemail on my phone, once every 2 weeks, because he's always bragging about successes of students or informing the community about programs going on in the schools. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's what you want it to be,
right?
And that's what it's supposed to be, and that's when you have people involved, who are, have that in mind and want to maintain that and make sure that stays into the future. I think that makes a big difference.
100%. Well, Larry, we thank you for coming on. We touched on a lot today. Just for everybody who's watching, why don't you give information about the Warrior Ranch? What's the website? Do they have social media? Ways they can find you and the Warrior Ranch and learn more about it.
Sure. Warrior Ranch is warriorranchfoundation.org. It's a 501c3, and no donation is too small. We really do need help and anyone's help in raising the funds that will allow us to continue to operate and provide these resources to military veterans and first responders. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. You just look up Warrior Ranch Foundation and it'll pop right up. If people want to reach out to me, I'm at, it's all one word spelled out, which I know is irritating when it's this long, but it's Blue Line Advocacy and Wellness @gmail.com. That anybody can reach out to me. And if anybody has any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
Well, glad to have you, Larry.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. It's been great.
Yeah, no, we're proud to have you on, proud to call you a friend. I think it's great how you're continuing your advocacy. It didn't stop with retirement. I think it's very admirable.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Larry.
My pleasure.